Name's Greg Watkins, Executive Director of the British Chamber of Commerce Thailand, and welcome to our Thursday afternoon webinar. This time it's our great pleasure to welcome a very good friend of the Chamber, Tom Sorensen, who will talk about Botox, your resume and LinkedIn. Tom is a well-known figure and a most welcome figure at BCCT events for many, many years. He's been in the HR recruitment business for nearly 20 years. And in fact, I first met Tom a little before that when he was president of the Danish Thai Chamber of Commerce. Tom is familiar to many of us in his positions with both Grant Thornton and Boydens, but now he's branching out on his own as Tom Sorensen Thailand Company Limited. So without further ado, let me hand over to Tom. And while Tom is presenting, please do post your questions in the normal way using the Q&A button at the foot of your screen. So over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Greg. Great to be here. And you know, I'm looking out of the window here from my home in Bang Na and see the sun is shining, and I hope I can bring a bit of sunshine into your life today. I got a lot of emails, a lot of calls from people who suddenly wake up in the morning to do job hunting and not go to job as they normally do, and suddenly find themselves a little bit in a panic. Desperation starts to sneak into your life, and it just looks absolutely impossible. So today we're gonna give you a little bit of a hand for you personally, perhaps for a good friend or anyone else you know, on the most important part in actually moving on. And that's what we're gonna use for my presentation here the next about 30 minutes, and then I'll be very happy to do a Q&A. Now here's the good news, and perhaps some bad news for somebody, that if you do not take care of your personal brand, others will do it for you. Now, if you're in a lucky situation and you have so much money in your bank account that you don't give and so on, you know, maybe this webinar is not really for you. But if you are like most of us, where you actually have to go out and market it yourself, you have to make sure your brand is presented in such an attractive way that people would like to talk to you, people would like to call you. So let's look at the most important part of your job search. The single most important part when you are looking to move on, either because you have to move on, that means you're between jobs, or just because you're fed up with the boss, he's an idiot, and you want to move on. What is the most important part of your job search? That is what we're going to talk about today. Now, I'm going to show you a slide for a company that is very familiar to all of us, LinkedIn. And you know, what I actually find quite interesting is that LinkedIn, established in San Francisco in 2002, 18 years ago, started their commercial operation in 2003. And for some reason, that 2003, 17 years ago, was also the year that I started my current career. You can say the second career in my life, and that was as a headhunter in Thailand. So LinkedIn is, of course, one of the most important places where you can present yourself, but you have to present yourself in a way that will attract people. And there has been you know, one research and survey, etc., after the other over the last many years. So we will now share the best practice in a few slides. Now the first one is the photo, and I know that many feel I will put my logo there, or I just leave it empty. You can see yourself on Google how many more times it is likely that somebody will contact you if you have a photo, not just any photo, and I will show you that what I mean. Was it 21 times more likely that you will get either a call or an email because your presentation, your photo helps with that overall view. So the photo, if you don't have a photo, you have to get one, and not just anyone. And we'll go into that in a minute. But here are just 4 simple tips for you. Obviously, surprise, surprise, photo that looks like you, right? So please do not do like so many Thais do, who are 48 years old and still use the photo when they graduated 23 years earlier. That doesn't work out, right? So make sure that you have an up-to-date. Actually, recommended is that you go and get a photograph from a professional photographer who can guess both with the camera and lighting, can make you a superstar and film star. Your face in that little circle or square should fill about 60%. So even you are an avid golfer and you like playing golf and you have somebody taking a photograph from the clubhouse to the furthest hole, that's not going to work, right? Answer, wear what you wear to work, right? So this is not Instagram, this is not Facebook. So we don't want to see you in Speedos or on the top of the Eiffel Tower. This is a professional networking, ladies and gentlemen, so you've got to have something, a photograph that looks like when you do business. And again, as you can see this photo, it's a little bit faded, you know, you can't really see what it is. So make sure that there are no kids in the background or no other funny things. Now I'm going to show you a couple of photos that you can see what I mean when I say these are not the photographs. Now the one at the left, upper left, you don't even know who this profile belongs to. Is it the first one with the arms up, or is the guy behind? Who is actually the person whose profile we are looking at? And to the right, somebody not looking into the camera. This is a no-no. This is not Sean Connery. It's not me. Even it looks like me actually a little bit. This is not the way. Black and white is okay, but you got to look into the camera. Now the bottom left, fancy looking sexy woman there with glasses, probably advertising something. This is the Instagram kind of picture. And then on the lower right, actually me when I was in the TV, again, it's so far away you can hardly see what it is, right? So not really good pictures. So all of these 4 photographs are not good for your LinkedIn profile. So let me share this website. It's called the Photo Feeler. It's a free website. Look it up, put in your own photograph that you want to use and wait a week and then go back again and then see how other people have scored your photograph on 3 different things: competency, the likable, and the influence factor. And here you can see actually not too bad. You got to be between 7 and 10 on all 3. So try to experiment a little bit, because the photograph is absolutely one of the most important things. We're moving on to just below your name. And if you do not edit and write something yourself, LinkedIn is going to take some information from your most recent or current position. And that can be something like happiness manager for DEF company limited in somewhere, that nobody knows what the hell is a happiness manager and what is this company, no idea. So this is important. You have to choose 2, 3, 4, 5 words like Heather on this profile. Find a couple of words, so 3 or 4 words that you feel will immediately give the person looking at your profile an idea. I can see, Greg, that somebody else is looking to get into it. So can we just let that last person, or maybe more than one, come into the presentation? I see a little mark
Okay,
there.
Tom, leave it with me.
Okay, I'll go on while you open the door for the last, or maybe the last few coming in. Now, just below, you have 6 different examples, just to give an idea how you actually profile yourself, so that you give the reader, the person looking at your profile, within half a second to realize who you actually are, what industry you're in, what you can do. Remember that everything on the internet is so fast these days. And you know yourself, when you go to Google and you want to find something, if you don't see what you think you want to see in half a second, right, you click back and you try something else. So everything is so fast that, if you don't have the right photo and the right, let's say the right keywords there, the person may not even scroll down to actually see, because the person might already be on to the next one. Here's another coming up very important part of that, what I call the LinkedIn showroom, the shop window. And you know, shop window in a shopping mall, what is that for? Why is it decorated so beautifully? Why is it very well lit? It's because they want customers to come inside the shop and use their money, obviously, right? And what I talk about here is the LinkedIn shop window. This is what you get on the screen. When you open up a profile, obviously you cannot see the whole profile. You have to scroll. So what you see when you open, that's the shop window. And that's where you get the attention and hopefully an interest. So somebody will scroll down and see who you are and also find a way to contact you. So here is that other very, very important part of your LinkedIn shop window. And this is the background picture. So here you have Austin. I don't know Austin. This is just an example. And in fact, this is not really the perfect picture, because what you want to do, I want to show you a full photos on the next slide, but what you want to do is to find a slide that will help people just looking at it to realize that you must be in logistics, you must be in legal profession, or you are in production in the automotive sector perhaps. So find something that will lead the person looking to see what you actually are. And then together with those keywords just below Austin's name, then that is where you attract the combination. And to help you find the good picture, go to this fantastic free website, which is not from LinkedIn. It just happens to be called linkedinbackground.com. On that free website, you can find, I don't know, many, I haven't counted, but thousands of photos that are actually made just to put into your LinkedIn profile. For example, I found these 3. So find something that you can obviously see that the first picture here must be somebody in supply chain, logistics, freight forwarding perhaps, right? Because you got a little bit of everything there. The one in the middle, that could be an office, it could be a lawyer, it could be many things. So find something find a photo that really quickly will help the person looking to know who she is dealing with. This was the LinkedIn part of my presentation. We now move on to the resume, the CV or the resume. And many people ask me, why do we use 2 different words? And you all know in Thailand, we have the saying that same, but different. And this is exactly what I think I could use here, same, but different. CV is the abbreviation from the Latin words curriculum vitae. Translated that to English, it's something like my journey through life. And because it's a journey through life, a CV tends to be quite a long document. And I see 5 pages, 9 pages, 12 pages. It is an absolutely career balance sheet with everything. Also sometimes neatly put into different columns, so it is very easy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this CV is something you should never, ever send to somebody. Never, ever. Keep it on your laptop, show it to your mother if you want, but do not show it externally, because we do not have time to read so many pages. And on that note, now I should actually perhaps just say a few words about the resume. See, the resume is a French word, interesting enough. And if there are any French people out there, let me just tell you, everybody, that the rest of the world use your word resume. Now, the funny thing is that in France, they do not use a resume for a resume. They still call it CV. But then again, that's why we have the French. So all the best for them. Now, the resume is a summary. That's actually what the French word means. It's brief, it's summary. And so imagine you have 5 pages CV, 10 pages, whatever you have. you have to make a summary of the CV into a 2-page, and that's what we call the summary, the summary of the CV, but we call it a resume. And I want to now ask you to count inside yourself. When I stop talking, try to count inside yourself 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, because I want you to feel the length of time it takes me, I could call headhunters, recruiters, how long it takes for us to look at a resume and then decide if it is interesting and we want to look more, or whether we hit the delete button and you go back into the black hole, never to be seen again, okay? So when you're ready, try to count now. So if you got 6 seconds, you are spot on. This is the only time that it takes for professionals to skim, not to read, obviously, but to skim your resume. And you can imagine if you send us 5 or 10 pages, we will probably just, get to the second page. And then, if you have all the best on page 3, 4, 5, and so on, you will probably never be invited, because we feel you are boring, you are not up to date, you have not listened to Tom's presentation, and are probably old-fashioned and still use AOL.com or Luxinfo and only have a fixed line 02 number on your resume. All the things that show that you are an old fart. So let me show you what a real resume, real professional resume looks like. This, just for information, is not a real person. It is totally made up by me. And we don't have time to go through. There is so much information on this, but I'll just give you a little look so that you can get an idea. I know that the slides will be available later on, so you also have a chance to do that. But here you have the name, just below the name, the same tagline that also is on LinkedIn, the address, not which floor, what apartment, and so on, but more to know whether you are in Bang Na, Tanning Chan, Chachangsao, or Ayutthaya, or perhaps in London. The profile, key expertise, the career history that is set up in the right way. The work period, which is hidden, it's there, but it's hidden. Next, see top of page 2. Here, if you have been between jobs and you don't know what to put, this is what you do. If you have 2 jobs in the same company, you may actually only write 1, but if 2 jobs are not exactly similar, but a little bit different, you can write it like this. If you have been working for more than 10 years, let's say absolute maximum 15 years, that's what you're going to show. If you have more than 15 years experience, we don't care what you have been done, what you have done in the past. And that's where this particular one, the career note, comes into the picture. That will just very briefly show the reader what you have done in the past. We never look at that. We focus on the last 10 years because everything changes, right? The way we use technology, the way we work. And so what you did 20 years ago or 30 years ago is totally irrelevant. LinkedIn references, if you are lucky that somebody actually liked you and actually put in a few words to give you some compliments, that could be a way to put in. If you have community activities, we like to do that. So if you are teaching the boys back in your Muban to play football over the weekend, wonderful. It shows initiative, care for the community, and that's what we like to do. If you have been writing, let's say for newspapers, magazines, even perhaps a book, this is the place to book it in. Academic history, educational background is what we call that, and is what we put there. And we do not need to know where you went to primary or secondary. Just take your most, let's say, highest education. If you have both a master and a bachelor and a master, then of course you can put in. And at the very end here, some key points. Some names, Thai names for a foreigner may not always be easy to see whether is this a woman or is it a male. If you want to put in that you're married or you're single, and for those listening in, if you are not Thai, but you are in Thailand and you now have a spouse, a girlfriend, a partner who is Thai. This is just a little thing, but quite important actually that you put that in, if you can see that here at the very bottom, because it will show us that you probably have a relationship with Thailand that goes beyond the normal visit, and then 2 years later you're gone again. So this is a little extra one on top of that. But let's move on to the next. Now, you probably heard a lot about robots or ATS. That stands for Applicant Tracking System. This is an American word. It's basically an application. It's a software that recruitment companies, the bigger ones at least, are using to keep your resume. It's where we email, it's where we search. It's basically a big operational system where everything happens. And it is like a robot. So when you submit a resume, it goes into the ATS. Nobody will see it, no person at least. And the only way we find you is when we look up the search module. Like you go to Google, we will look up the search field, and we will then put in many, many words. The words that will typically be hard skills. So that can be supply chain, logistics, rayon, automotive, Thailand. And we are not using soft skills like energetic, team player, motivated, ambitious, whatever, because then we will get all the millions of resumes up, and we don't want to do that. So this is an important part when you write your resume. You can write some of the soft skills, but the key really is to write the hard skills. So coming back to some of the basics, if you have less than 10 years experience, 1 page will do. If you have more than 10 years experience, and then basically whatever, 2 pages must be enough. For your information, I started working as a young man in 1970. For those that are quickly with numbers, in August of this year, I would have been working for 50 years. And I can't really believe it myself. But when people ask me, so, I mean, you must have a whole book when you have to write your resume. No, I haven't. Mine is only 2 pages because I only focus on the last 10 years. The fonts, somebody might remember Times New Roman. Please, if you're using that, it will show how old you are. You've got to change to one of those on the slide. Calibri, Arial, or Badana. The most famous one at the moment is the first one, Calibri. A very good choice. Please do not try to become an artist or an advertising executive that will be using colors, images, and so on. You know, it's we don't have time to figure out where is the different information. And even worse, many of the smaller applicant tracking systems will not actually be able to look into all your text boxes. So if you are using a header, for example, with your name, some applicant tracking systems will never actually get out of the header where you have your name and address. And when the applicant tracking system is looking for keywords, some of the keywords I mentioned before, but only find your address, it will pass your resume. So don't use header and footer. So be very careful how artistic you want to be. Bullet points, always good to use bullet points under your work experience, but make sure that you don't use too many. So under work experience, not under education or other things, but under your work experience, where you are talking about where you have been employed, you should be using maximum 20 bullet points. And in each bullet point, do not make more than 2 lines. Otherwise, it becomes messy. And here's another little trick. When you have done your Word document, your resume, try to go to word count and see how many words are in your resume. And if you are somewhere between, let's say, 750 to 850, so around the 800, you are spot on. If you only have 500, you are probably a new graduate and don't have a lot of things to say, and that's fine. But if you have 9,000, 1,200, way too many, and you will risk that we don't really see everything else. Here is also an interesting one. No photos, please. This is always a hot issue, and I can perhaps elaborate a bit on that later, but do not put any photos, whether you are Miss Thailand or not. there will always be, after the applicant tracking system has looked at your resume, there will be a person, probably a supervisor in HR, who has an idea how people should look like when they work in this company, right? And if you are too handsome or too beautiful, this supervisor might say, this kind of person will never lift a finger, long nails, can't type very quickly. Now, this is not the way we want to see people here. So just don't risk it, right? No matter how you look. No hobbies, no hobbies at all. No reference name. You don't have to write this that I see somewhere. References, what is it? References available on request or something like that. Stupid. Don't do it. Use it to talk about yourself, because whether you like it or not, we will call people, whether you give it to us or whether we get it from somewhere else. That's the way it works. So use the space to actually give another bullet point why you are perfect. Honorary jobs in the community, absolutely. And that can be if you are a director in the board of let's say, a board of the British Chamber, absolutely. If you are in Rotary, not just a member is nothing, right? That's easy. But if you are in the board of directors, in your golf club, Rotary, Alliance, Red Cross, one of the chambers, excellent point to put in. The second to last, which I just skipped, education. If you are educated after 2000 and a bit, that's okay. You can put in that you got your master's in 2011. But if your education goes back to something with 1990, 1980, 1970, right? Don't put the year, because what you're trying to do is you are trying to market yourself. Remember, this is all about marketing. On my website that you have right here, there is lots and lots and lots of information. I have been blogging for more than 10 years, and I have posted stories about God knows what. The one I did last night, or yesterday, was it? It was yesterday, where I write about why gaps in your work experience is not critical. You know, it's not a big thing, right? And I know this is a worry for many, that suddenly there's a year where they didn't work for whatever reason, right? Don't worry. Go to my website and read why this is not a worry, or go to this website and look up many, many, many stories. Last but not least, if you have still not got enough of me, then let me just mention that last month I started free webinars, and I do that end of the month. This is my second coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. So if you still want to have this one more time, but in addition, live demonstration on LinkedIn, exactly where do you click, how do you get beautiful logos, how does the period look like, then go to the flashing URL on the screen, my website /webinar, you sign up and join me at 7 tonight, where you will get it all over again and a lot more actually. So this would end my presentation exactly at 3:30. And with these words, I will hand back the microphone to Greg.
Many thanks, Tom. Spot on timing. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gents, I know there are quite a few of you on the webinar. Please type your questions in. I have a few just to get us going, Tom. In terms of writing your resume, is it best to start with the CV, to start with the longer version and then work it down, or in your experience, go straight into that 1 or 2 pages?
It depends on really on a personal choice, Greg. I know that many have read books about how they should write a CV or resume, actually without knowing exactly what it is. So I would suggest that you start with a CV, and it's absolutely fine that you keep your CV. You put in your name and then CV, right? And that's where you then keep updating whenever you have done something that is worth talking about, achievements, accomplishments. You can add that to your CV, because maybe you are in a job and you have no intention of leaving that job, at least for now. But when you suddenly one day want to leave, or somebody asked you to leave, and you then have to try and figure out, what did I actually do in this company, right? And then you can't remember that. So having a CV on your laptop where you kind of once in a while you add certain things is a kind of a personal library. So when the time comes, then you look at your CV, then you pick from your CV and create that summary of the CV focusing on the last 10 years. That is the way to do it. Now, you may have different experience during your career, and there will be situations where you want to highlight, let's say, a particular part of that, but then next time it may be that you want to focus on the other side. So you will probably end up with 3 or 4 different types of resumes. And the key here is, before you send it, and if you have a chance to talk to a recruiter, see the ad on LinkedIn or perhaps on the company website, look for the keywords that they are using in the job description, and then pick these hard skill words and then spread them around your resume and in your introduction, because that is the way that somebody's going to say, oh, yeah, perfect, tick, tick, tick. Yep, that would be my suggestion.
Sure, thanks. Fantastic. I have one question from Chris Thatcher. It's not the one I thought he was going to ask, so I'll ask that afterwards. It's many BCCT members are very small company owners, not necessarily looking for jobs, but looking to promote themselves and their businesses. Much of what you said also applies. Any advice to them?
Yeah, absolutely. You see LinkedIn, so for companies or people, owners, business owners that may not want to have a resume, hopefully not, and never, because that means they would be successful in their business. But the LinkedIn profile is, of course, not only to present yourself with the purpose of getting a job. LinkedIn is also used by customers, clients, suppliers, vendors, colleagues, bosses, people at the head office. It's sort of a public library to quickly see what you are, right? And therefore, you can actually do 2 things. You should do 2 things. One, have your personal LinkedIn profile exactly the way that I have explained today. There's no difference in that. You should also create a corporate LinkedIn profile. This is also free. And on that one, you can have your logo, you can post different stories if you want. And by having a corporate LinkedIn profile with a logo, when you create your personal LinkedIn profile and you come to the part where you have to say where you are working, because your company has created a company LinkedIn profile with a logo, that means when you do your personal LinkedIn profile, you can actually find your own company with that logo, so that that gray box to the left of company and the period will actually be very nice, and it will show a colorful, beautiful logo. So there are here 2 good reasons why you should have both the personal but also a corporate LinkedIn profile, because your boss, your partner, your joint venture partner, your staff, anyone will go to LinkedIn before they do business with you, or even after they are employed. They will have a look and see, perhaps they can learn something.
Thanks, Tom. And with the question I thought Chris was going to ask is something we've discussed. Are you sensing within the industry that having a tertiary education qualification, a degree of whatever sort, is becoming less important now compared to that direct experience? Or is it just really related to, if you're in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, the experience really does matter a lot more than a degree in the distant past?
If you have been in a job for 10 years, then the education is totally irrelevant. I'm sorry to say that to all those that used years of their life and money to actually get the best education. But be happy, because that is probably the reason why you have come to the point in your career or life where you are right now. So it is, of course, I'm not saying that you should never get an education, because that's sort of the whole thing that makes you get on with a career. But when you look at a person's resume or LinkedIn profile, it is clearly the work experience, the last 10 years work experience, that is the absolute key. And whether you have bachelor or master degree that is 20 or 30 years old, they probably don't even teach that anymore, right? So it's totally irrelevant, absolutely irrelevant, and not something that I really care about.
Sure. Any more questions, ladies and gents? I have another one as regards to age, Tom, because I guess we're in that upper level of experience. We've reached a level of maturity greater than probably most on this call. To what extent do you think age plays a part, or if the position is senior enough and the experience matches the individual, do you think age plays a part? There must be a maximum level.
Yeah, age, I think age in Asia is less important than it is in Europe, for sure. So, so in a way, we are lucky if we are job seeking and we are in the 50s or 60s. Age is in Asia, in Thailand, not really a key factor for the top positions. Now, if you are not a C-suite director, VP, and you want to have a job, and you might be in your 50s and 60s, then there are still HR and recruiters and companies who may consider you too old. And that, of course, is just a perception that these people have. But Tom Peters, In Search of Excellence, author, one of the first management books I ever read, he actually said that perception is reality. So that means whatever other people think about you, that's their facts, right? So unfortunately, age is still something that is a point. But at the real top level, I mean, then you don't get the senior jobs, in let's say in, can I say, traditional companies, unless you are somebody with 20 years experience. That means you are probably late 40 into your 50, or maybe even into your 60, right?
Sure. Dean and Chris have posed a couple of questions, but they're actually related to the other question I was going to ask. Tomorrow in our chamber chat session, we're discussing the new work-life balance for our team members, for our staff, our colleagues, and indeed ourselves. That balance from working from home, working in an office, maybe a smaller office environment, maybe multiple organizations or companies coming together in a larger office. And the questions Dean and Tom have asked are, what is the job market like now? Are companies hiring, or is there a freeze? How can someone stand out from the crowd? And I'd relate this. Do you see a major change in your business because of this work-life balance and the fact that many people seem to be working extremely well from home, and that will become a factor in many organizations in their recruitment policies?
Absolutely. Well, in terms of the job market at the moment, I looked at, I didn't have this on my presentation even after the one that you see, but I have another slide in another presentation that actually shows what happened to the job market in China, in Singapore, UK, France, and the United States, and a few other countries. And what was interesting, what you can see, it's actually a LinkedIn number that they have pulled out of the system that shows how many jobs were advertised on not only on LinkedIn. Here's a little perhaps spoiler, I don't know, but when you go to LinkedIn and you look up available jobs, you will see two things. You will see those jobs that companies have paid LinkedIn to show on the website. But LinkedIn is also what is called an aggregator. And that means LinkedIn crawls the internet, and they will pick up vacant jobs on Indeed, Monster.com, JustBe, Glassdoor, whatever it is. And that is the total number. And right now, I looked, I think it was on Monday, I looked, I think, if I remember, was it 40,000 jobs that are available in Thailand at the moment? These 40,000 jobs are the combination, right, of the companies that have paid LinkedIn to be shown on LinkedIn, but also those jobs, vacancies that LinkedIn have pulled in from all the other job boards. So it actually gives a pretty good idea on how many jobs are available. I double checked with Glassdoor because they do the same as LinkedIn, right? You can pay Glassdoor to get a space on their website, but they also crawl the internet, and they then pick up vacancies posted on LinkedIn. And that number is pretty much the same. You can on LinkedIn, if you go to jobs on LinkedIn, and you then you can go in and see how many jobs were posted within the last 24 hours, within the last week, and within the last whatever, right? Like 4 or 5 different levels. You can also then have another pull down menu that shows how many jobs have been posted at what level. And that actually gives a pretty good idea. There's no doubt lots of things are happening at the moment. When I looked, I think it was Tuesday morning actually, when I looked at how many new jobs that were posted the day before, which was Monday, just a few days ago, at C-suite and director executive level, it was 40. And that was just at the highest level in the organization. And then there was another number, which I can't, whatever, thousands. So there is no doubt that a lot of things are happening right now. And when you look at both China and Singapore, they went down quickly, in particular. China, of course, in terms of hiring people, but China is again over what they hired at this same time last year. So I also have input from some executives that have actually realized that many talented people have had to leave their employment because of the COVID. And they have actually asked both recruiters and their HR to go hunting before everybody else gets going, and then let's say take the best of the best that suddenly without their own mistake found themselves without a job. So please, if you are sitting in an HR or in an executive position, please do not sit on your hands, right? Because there are companies out there who are picking the best people, because we know it's going to take a couple of months before somebody can actually get through the process and start working. So if you are sitting on your hands thinking you are the smart one, you should reconsider the options. So a lot of things are going on. Absolutely.
So on those numbers you mentioned of new jobs, how do they compare to 6 months ago, roughly? Are they, much higher, much lower, or not too dissimilar?
Actually, very, very little when I look. I mean, if you look before the COVID, right? Little change. I mean, it's not like, let's say 10% of let's say of the period before that. What is the difference? Actually, I didn't calculate that. Just from the hip, 20% down. Not sort of something, I would say, not something dramatic. So absolutely, companies are hiring. I get lots of requests. I got jobs to do, which is good.
Fantastic. Okay, last question for me. It's said that we'll now have quite a few different careers in our lifetimes. I think you're probably living proof of that. Is it better to target and focus your profile and show relevant but limited experience, or incorporate your wider diverse experience?
Well, the easy answer, but that doesn't answer your question. It depends, really. Now, if you have been in a certain function or a certain industry almost all your life, at least the last 15 years. This is what recruiters are looking for. So if as many executives sometime get to, let's say, when they get into the second half of their career, right? They say, look, I've been in this business for a long time, I want to change. And they come to me and say, please, present me for something that I've never been involved in. Keep dreaming. It's not going to happen. So the only way you have a chance to, let's say, get from what you have done the last 10, 15 years to something else that you think would be nice is if you are at the highest C-level in Europe or United States, you may be picked as a board member or a CEO where, let's say, experience is perhaps not the key, but everybody else, all of us, the rest of us, we don't have a chance. So that means if you want to do something else, there are only a few choices for you. One, start your own business in what you want to do. Second, hope that a good friend, former colleague, former boss, who you know for many years and who knows you and have seen how well you actually perform and who will be willing to actually give you a chance in a business that is very different from what you are doing. That would be really the choices you have. Otherwise, live with your faith that if you have been in shoe manufacturing all your life, it's probably going to be difficult to get another executive job with a different industry. So that would be, the maybe shorter answer to that, but it all depends really. And what I mentioned earlier, that you have different resumes, right? So it all depends on the purpose of your resume. What kind of job do you see advertised? What is your interest? And then try, don't just send out one type of resume all over the place because the applicant tracking system is probably not going to find you because you have not created a resume that includes the keywords from that particular advertisement that you saw online.
Sure. Okay. Fantastic. Thanks very much indeed, Tom. Some wonderful insights there. And as Tom mentioned, there's a lot more on Tom's website, and I think even more widely, searching through Google, you'll find a lot of Tom's experience and knowledge. So please do look into his massive resource of information. So thanks again for attending, everybody who participated, and final thanks to you, Tom. We'll see you at the next event.
My pleasure.
And we're already planning the possibility of physical events next month.
Wow,
in whatever form we're allowed to do. So I'm sure you'll be one of the first people to join the event.
For sure.
Good luck with your webinar this evening.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And send me a mail if you have any other questions I can help you with. Thank you very much.